Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Education Lady Podcast. Before we meet today's guest, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, all of these sponsors are companies I used as an athletic director. They're all great companies. I highly recommend that you check them out. So don't hit that fast forward button. Take the next 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our interview, and then go and visit these sponsors if you're not already using them. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing for their support of the podcast. Hometown is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. We also want to say thanks to our friends at Gipper. You know, your students are on social media, and if they're not seeing content that's celebrating their accomplishments and promoting your program, you're really missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. Their team is going to have you creating world-class content in seconds, and it's so easy, even I can do it. The website is Gipper.com. Mention the podcast. That's Gipper.com. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. We'd like to thank Huddle for their support. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. Our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes love the videos, and our parents love the streaming, but there is so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users. Turn your school into a Huddle school. We'd like to thank Snap Raise for their support. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results? Those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it because it works so well. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com. We'd like to thank Ohio University and their online master's in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio University, but my assistant athletic director did, and it was a great experience. It's a very affordable program, just 20 months, totally online. And while you're completing your master's degree, Ohio University includes 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. To get more information, go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. We'd like to thank Home Campus for their support. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day. Things like scheduling, uploading scores, rosters, communication. How about student athlete eligibility and clearance? Who doesn't do that every day? Well, Home Campus does all of this, does a whole lot more, it does it better, and it does it faster. To get started, just go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We'd like to thank our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to share your school's unique history and brag about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. You know, athletic directors already get feedback, but it's typically from a very small group that just wants to complain. Athletic Surveys will connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders that support your program. And that information is incredibly valuable, especially when you're meeting with a frustrated parent or student athlete, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We are visiting today with a new friend. We're going up to New Hampshire, and we're going to be talking with Ann Mattarazzo. Regular listeners will recognize that name. We had Ann on a couple of months ago on our small school AD segment. Did a great job, and I wanted her to come back so we could maybe dive a little bit deeper into how she runs her program at Bishop Brady High School. That's in Concord, New Hampshire. So, Ann, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, Jake. Happy to be back. I'm excited to talk more. I love talking shop.
Well, for our listeners, we're recording this on September 5th. So it's going to be pretty timely when you listen to it. And I didn't ask you before we came on, a lot of schools have already been back here in Florida. We have probably 2, 3 weeks in already with classes. Where are y'all at in New Hampshire? Are you back in school as far as academics?
Yeah, so a lot of schools tend to start after Labor Day, but we're one that goes a little earlier. So we went back with our first full day on August 26th. So we are in week three um, of our school year. So
Okay. Well, it's obviously it's a busy time, but we appreciate you sharing with us. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe take us up through your own college years, and then we'll take a break. But what's the Ann Matarazzo origin story?
yeah, so I have a really fun story. I was born and raised in Concord, New Hampshire, at Bishop Brady, actually. I'm kind of like a legacy child here. My parents actually had their wedding reception in our gym, which is pretty much the same from 1980, besides some Pantone color changes. Yeah, so I grew up in New Hampshire. I come from a very big athletic family. My parents were high school sweethearts, and my mom's family was a very dominant hockey family in the state. And my dad's family was a big basketball family in the state. I have a lot of uncles that are in Hall of Fames, and my cousin is like the leading scorer in basketball in the state of New Hampshire for high school. So I have a lot of background in sports. Uniquely, I was a dancer. My aunt is a dance teacher, and I was a dancer for the first like 10 years, 11 years of my life, and never really picked up the sport of basketball, which was my passion, until fifth grade. I went to a very small Catholic school and they didn't have girls' teams. So I had always kind of been intrigued with basketball and grew up in a gym. My uncle was a pretty big AAU coach in the state here, with the likes of like Matt Bonner, who's a New Hampshire, San Antonio Spurs native. And I picked up the game and wanted to play on a team. So I played on the boys team for the first couple of years with like AAU, and I couldn't play back then. You couldn't play in the
Right.
tournaments and the state tournament. And I got my school team to start a girls team, and it was awesome. So from like fifth grade on, we had a junior high basketball team, and I just fell in love with the game of basketball. I was a one sport athlete, and if you ask me now, which I can share later, it's not necessarily um, my message to athletes these days. But back in the day, I just focused in on that sport. I, in eighth grade, decided I really wanted to play college basketball. I actually made a fun little commitment letter with my dad that I had goals to do. We put it on the wall. And I played high school basketball, ended up winning a state championship at Trinity High School in Manchester my senior year, which was awesome, the best experiences, and went off. And I have a kind of a unique college story. I went off and I grew up in the Catholic school, so I went off and played at Georgian Court my freshman year in New Jersey, and ended up transferring, not for anything to do with that school or the athletics, but my family is very big in this state, and it was hard for them to come out and watch me play. So you learn that journey, and I share it with kids now. You might not know what's important to you until the weirdest moment. And while I was playing that winter, my freshman year, I decided I missed my fans. So I ended up transferring back to New Hampshire, graduated from Plymouth State. And after playing, I decided probably about sophomore year in college, coaching women's basketball in college was my dream. So I moved from Plymouth State to UMass Lowell and started my coaching career there. So.
Wow. So many questions. I want to go back to, growing up. You said, you're one sport athlete in high school, but middle school, neighborhood, street. I mean, what are some of your memories of those competitions? And as you said, you're an athletic girl. You're going right in there, I assume, shoulder to shoulder with the boys, right?
Mhm. So I actually grew up in a very unique setting. People will laugh at this. My grandfather was very Italian, my dad's dad, and he was very big 40 years ago in commercial space. So in a street in New Hampshire, he bought 8 properties for housing. 4 were cleared out with land and 4 were woods. And his 4 kids all were gifted lots and land. So I grew up on a street with I'm one of maybe 2 girl cousins. I had 10 boy cousins on the street with me. So I grew up playing outside with all my cousins. We live in, they call it like the Alosa compound. And we just played sports. We played every sport we could in every spot of our street. We lived on a cul-de-sac and I loved it. I just grew up around males playing sports, especially hockey and basketball. And I got really competitive. I got knocked down a lot growing up and I learned how to get back up. And I really find that that was my building on the passion of athletics and just the opportunities for girls and boys to play, but the lessons you learn from it. I think my cousins made me better growing up than I ever thought. So I didn't really have real neighbors. I used to play at the parks back in the day. Probably you agree. The pickup at the park was always fun, or at our YMCA. They don't do it as much anymore. It's coming back a little bit in our area, but I just go out and play wherever I could find an opportunity, especially when I started playing with girls, like in junior high. There was not a lot of AAU back in my day. So we had teams in the state of New Hampshire, but I played. But yeah, I just tried to get out and play as much as possible. I was a kid that wanted to be at practice an hour before because I was just enthralled with the game and learning it in so many different aspects. So
All right, you open this door, so I'm going to jump in here. You talked about pickup games at the park. We'd have those, in the gym, outdoor courts, the city park, et cetera. And I remember in junior high, um, we went to it was a small town, but it's a big, enormous public school, drew from a lot of area. But we had a couple of girl athletes. They were basketball players. They were multi-sport kids, but they were good players. And I remember there would be games where you're choosing teams. The old school way. We don't do that now. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But very often those girls would get picked, maybe not first, but second or third over guys that ended up playing high school basketball later. So, what was your experience in that environment? Were they picking Ann ahead of some of the boys?
you know what? To start, I would say no. I was a pretty undersized shooting guard, and they had to figure out what level. But by the time I reached ninth, 10th grade, and the amount of time I put into the game, I think people started, even my own cousins and family started to really respect because I just fell in love with the game and I put so much time. I was that kid that played outside till 10 a.m. My dad put a light outside, and I just prided myself on my work ethic, and I knew that was how I was going to get better. Like I said, being an undersized kid from New Hampshire, I had to really set myself apart. So I actually became consumed with the shooting. So I would shoot like 1,000 shots a day. And so as people saw me shoot better statistically, I got higher in that picking process. So
Okay, all right. Oh, good. I'll pick you for my team next time we got a pickup game
thanks,
going.
Jake.
All right. Last question for this segment. You talked about, you at a very young age, you had your commitment letter all signed out. What are your memories of that recruiting experience and going from high school to college?
It's actually my absolute passion beyond high school athletics now. I actually do a lot with recruiting here with the kids, which I can talk about later. But I love that process and I love the journey. So, everybody, has special hoop dreams and you have a dream school. And of course, we all have those. But I love just like finding my place. I became a recruiting coordinator later in my career. And I think it's truly because I just dove into that process. I wasn't getting big time Division I offers, and I tell kids, you're not everyone's going to get that. There's such a low percentage that even get the opportunity to play. So take advantage of your opportunities, and that's what I did in my journey. I explored a lot. I went out and went to Pennsylvania, to Shippensburg, and some of the schools out there, and did a triangle visit for some recruiting trips. I didn't really look down in Florida too much. Went to Carolinas and visited a couple schools just to, enjoy the journey. And who knew what was going to be the best fit for me. And I would never take take any of that process back. I was very diligent, and I love the whole recruiting process. And I started to build like my own philosophy on it, even at a young age. Like I had Excel sheets with coaches' contacts. I became kind of obsessed with doing my own homework. Like I think that's was the work ethic in me. And so I share that now with kids. I'm like, oh, I can help you, but you've got to do the work, and make sure you know who the coach is at this school, and make sure you know the majors they offer, and put it all in one place and keep yourself organized. So I love that process. It was really fun. There are the ups and downs. And I think one of the best lessons I learned from recruiting is actually hearing no. Like, no, we don't have a space for you, or no, we don't have an offer. And that's what I tell kids. It's a powerful journey, and it's not all positive, and it's not all easy, but you'll find your right school. And one of my messages from the recruiting process, even today, and what I did was, when you make your decision, be proud. And that's like such a powerful moment for kids in the recruiting process. So I loved it. I think I picked up a lot of great traits going through my own recruiting journey that I'm able to share now with kids. In my dream, I built a house instead of starting a business, but if I could start a business, I would start a recruiting company, just to teach kids how to like take the initiative of their process. So.
No, I love it. And we're actually going to take a deeper dive into that part of your life after college in our next segment. For listeners, our guest once again is Ann Mattarazzo. She's a certified athletic administrator. She's the director of athletics at Bishop Brady High School in Concord, New Hampshire. We're going to take that break, but we're coming back with more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing for their support of the podcast. Hometown Ticketing is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. And I don't think I need to say anything more, but I'm going to. If you go to hometownticketing.com, their team is going to show you how to set up and sell tickets at your school, online tickets, not just for athletic events, but things like school plays and concerts, school dances, even graduation. And here's the best part. Every school gets assigned a dedicated client success manager that's going to provide you hands-on support every step of the way. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. We also want to thank our good friends at Gipper. Your students are on social media, so are a lot of their parents. And if they're not seeing content that celebrates their accomplishments and promotes your program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. They're going to have you creating world-class content in seconds, and it's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. That's Gipper.com. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Once again, our guest is Ann Mattarazzo, certified athletic administrator and the director of athletics at Bishop Brady High School. Ann, you and I have talked before. You have incredible background in athletics prior to becoming an AD. We're going to hear all about Bishop Brady in our next segment, but share with our listeners, your journey post-college that ended up bringing you to Bishop Brady.
Yeah, so I go back and say in eighth grade, I made the commitment letter to be a college basketball player, but in high school, I started falling in love with the concepts of leadership, and found myself coaching when I was a junior. Doing AAU, I decided to start coaching AAU. I coached 10-year-olds and realized it was probably my calling. Not to coach 10-year-olds, I will tell you. That was a lot harder than you think. But I found myself just falling in love with the concept of coaching leadership, and just all the pieces that fall into that place. So when I committed in my senior year, I started to coach juniors in high school as an AAU. I assisted with the AAU director. And I love the older level and just to diving in more to coaching. So when I transferred and graduated from Plymouth State, I actually reopened my recruiting, which allowed me to reopen a lot of relationships with coaches. And I was really fortunate by the time I had graduated that the coach, Kathy O'Neill at UMass Lowell, she's since retired. She had been there almost 30 years, that she offered me a position to be on her staff as an assistant coach. So I moved from Plymouth State at graduation, never went home, and moved to Lowell, Massachusetts, and started a wonderful career in coaching basketball. I don't look back and want to change a thing. The journey has helped me understand athletics even more. So I started at UMass Lowell, like in anything with coaching, especially small schools and even in women's basketball specifically, you got to kind of move around and take your next opportunity. So I spent a couple years at UMass Lowell working predominantly with shooting guards, and I loved it. I got to do what I loved, focus in on what I love, and do some game management, learn from somebody with an amazing plethora of background of skills. And I'm kind of a book nerd. My dad always said, always be a student of the game. And that's kind of who I am. I want to learn everything I can and take from everybody. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but I do enjoy learning. So from her, it was awesome. Spent a couple years, got an opportunity. Actually, the year before she retired, which I was really sad because I moved to New York, and got an opportunity to actually be a recruiting coordinator at Adelphi University when they transitioned into the Northeast 10 Conference, which was awesome. A coaching friend that I had known had just gotten hired, and she offered me the position. And you'll laugh, when I was only about 24 years old, 25 years old at that time, and I said, "Are you sure you want me to do that?" Because I've never done it. But she appreciated my work ethic, right? And I was grateful for that. And I look back and say, wow, like work ethic gets you a long way. But she loved my passion for recruiting. And that's where that year, the time there at Adelphi was really when I realized how much I love the college process, the college recruitment process, and getting to know people. I'm a very big people person, and love the Northeast 10, was already in it because Lowell was a part of the Northeast 10 at that point, and just the competitiveness of women's basketball. So I started to wonder what being a head coach was like after about 5 years of coaching college sports. My family is all from New Hampshire, as I mentioned, so took a different route and embarked on high school coaching. My family I had just had my first nephew. They were going through some things. So I moved back to Salem, New Hampshire, and took a Division I high school coaching job there. I was actually the youngest in the state for Division I women's basketball, which was fun. I was coaching against coaches that had been there since I played. So it was kind of fun to do that full circle. And I learned how to make decisions and fail at them, which was super powerful in my coaching journey. And I had a lot of fun. I worked in the school there, kind of dabbled. I finished my master's degree with the athletic director there, Dave Rosmick, who's now actually the assistant of NHIA. So it's been kind of full circle coming back into this role, and finished my master's degree with him assisting in the athletic department, which was awesome. I learned a lot about football from Dave there, so that was fun. But being in a Division I high school and having to be the head coach, having to talk to the papers, something as simple as that, I learned so much. Then I started to miss recruiting though, and I did get an opportunity to go back into college coaching, this time at an elite academic institution, Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah.
So adventured back there and thought, this is where I'm at. I'm going to be a college coach for the rest of my life. Was like, oh, that was good experience in high school. But then I had some family get sick. My dad and a couple of people in my circle were going through some health things. And for some reason, I felt called to return to New Hampshire. So I was like, I'm never going back to high school. And so I went to prep school and worked at New Hampton Prep School for 2 years. And then I found myself getting called because the Bishop Brady girls basketball job came open, and my family's so tied to this area that I was asked if I would ever apply. And I said, well, I can't travel from New Hampton and I can't do that. So I'd have to work in the school. And in 2016, I found myself in Concord, New Hampshire again, living and working at Bishop Brady. I took on numerous jobs. I started to pursue my certification to teach math. I have a pretty decent background from a business undergraduate and sports business master's degree. So in the state, I only needed so much left to finish my state certification and started that. And I was like, oh, I'll be a high school teacher and a high school basketball coach. This is it, Annie. I think you're meant to do this. And in 9 months of being at Bishop Brady, my athletic director at the time, who I was helping too, because obviously I have the background, and we connected really well, actually took a job back closer to his home in Maine at Oyster River High School. And my school said, Annie, you should be the athletic director. And I said, no way, I'll never do it. And then a month later, I found myself accepting the position. I tried to balance for a few years, teaching math and doing the AD, but as you can tell, probably by my energy, I am all hands on deck and I go 150 miles an hour. So since then, I've had to cut my time from teaching. I still teach a leadership course, which I do 3 days a week for kids here. But now I've been all in as an athletic director. Never thought I would end up being a high school athletic director, but since then it has been a joy. I did have children over my 9 years of my tenure here with Bishop Brady. I did step away for a year during COVID and had a child. Found myself back here again and got back in the AD role pretty quick. I think it's my destiny to be an athletic director. I think everything has led me back to this path. I miss college coaching, but I really have found a niche here to be able to work with athletes who want to go play college sports. And even those who maybe want to be grad assistants and not lose the sports avenue and connecting them. So it has been a fun journey, but my journey has definitely been a wild ride. And here I find myself. So.
Wow, definitely a wild ride, but I love to hear the stories and the different stops along the way. We're going to hear about life at Bishop Brady in our next segment. I want to go back to, that first coaching opportunity. We use an expression in our world, usually about coaches. Sometimes it's about ADs too, but the expression, you don't know what you don't know. As you were becoming a head college coach, and certainly you were no stranger to sports, but what was maybe one thing, maybe two things that you found out that you didn't know about being a head coach?
Being a head coach, so I was at Salem High School, so I was actually working with 14 to 18-year-olds, which was so fun. You didn't know how kids react. Like you don't always understand the reaction to your decisions. So, like for example, at that level, playing time is a lot, right? And so, how do you get the most out of your kids in big or small adverse situations? And you always have to kind of have a pulse of your individuals. And as an assistant coach and coaching, I love to do all the behind the scenes, and I would love to, do the extras for kids. But I never really realized that first reaction to adverse situations. And a lot of that in high school seemed to stem early from like playing time. I was a new coach that came in, and some kids were like, "Well, I played last year all the time," and they might not have been seeing as many minutes, but I still had to get them to buy in. I think that was my biggest lesson in my first year was understanding every individual story and how to get them to buy in and get the most out of them, whether they were playing 32 minutes in the high school level for me, or whether they were, a bench player that was just so helpful in practice because they had the hardest work ethic, and they ended up being so beneficial to the growth of our program, or they were the best defender and how do we use that in times when we needed it, or they just weren't ready yet and how to still keep them engaged. And that is such a big thing. I actually just spoke about it one day in my leadership class recently. Kids are so quick to judge coaches or bosses. And sometimes it's just articulating the why to them. They were trying to define leadership and they said you have to have intent and reason. And I found as a head coach, if I was able to articulate that in so many ways or demonstrate that by, a hands-on approach or articulating that verbally to them, I got more out of them. And that's a hard job for a head coach because now you've got to get the X's and O's, you've got to get everything to run right as a team. But then you have to worry about each individual and how you're getting the most out of them or how they're handling the role you assign, but also them knowing your why. Like, what is your intent? What's the end result? So.
Yeah, and that is definitely a mouthful. And you covered all sorts of, let's say, tools that we might get to later in the toolbox about being a coach. I still remember, again, 100 years ago when I was in a little kid sports, it was a common refrain. Well, the coach doesn't like me. Well, no, the coach is coaching you. Okay. It has nothing to do with like, but now it's a different era. Let's go and take another quick break. For our listeners, our guest today is Ann Mattarazzo. She's a certified athletic administrator, longtime coach, currently the athletic director at Bishop Brady High School in Concord, New Hampshire. We're going to hear all about Bishop Brady when we come back, but let's give a shout out to some of our sponsors. This is the Educational AD Podcast.
Hold on.
We want to say thank you to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Of course, we use it for home games, but we also use it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and the customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. Our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our kids loved the videos. Our parents loved the streaming, but there is so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to thank our good friends at Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com.
Yeah, Jake, we love Snap. Shout out to Cameron. We use Snap fundraising a lot here at Bishop Brady, and it's great. You know what's beautiful is our school's a small school, and we still benefit so much from the extra fundraising, the ease of it, and what they do there. Just kind of takes a lot of the hassle out of our hands. And a lot of our kids play multiple sports, but it's amazing. Our parents really appreciate knowing that, their team is getting that funding, and the visibility and the ease of just kind of getting the word out. Thank God for social media. We send out a lot of links for some fundraising through Snap. So
Oh well, gosh, that's so nice for you to say, and you're absolutely right. That was my experience as an AD. Our Snap rep was great. Explained the process to our coaches and our kids. Our kids did a great job, getting the emails, and it was done before you even knew it got started. But it was just so effective. And as you mentioned, those extra resources are certainly good. Appreciate you sharing that.
yeah.
For listeners, one more time, our guest is Ann Mattarazzo, longtime coach, college coach, and high school coach, who's currently the athletic director at Bishop Brady High School. Ann, you shared how you got to Bishop Brady, as you said, kind of a legacy, and now you've been the athletic director there for a number of years. What are some things that you do as an athletic director, as a leader with your students, your coaches, your community that you're particularly proud of, that you would say are best practices?
Yeah, that's great. So when I came here to Bishop Brady, I actually took on about 17 jobs. I was coaching 3 sports, head coach of the basketball program and multiple. And when I started here coaching and then also being the director of communications, a math teacher, I took on multiple roles in that first year. Um, I'd already known the school community so much, but coming in as a coach was really excellent from like a leadership standpoint, and not jumping in as just the AD here, because I really got to see, obviously I've been around here my whole life, but I got to see what athletics look like and what the kids' perspective was and the parents' perspective, and just how things ran. So I think I benefited a lot coming in here leadership wise, taking on multiple roles, doing the communication. I got to see so many aspects of what's going on at the school now. I had seen it, I had traveled some coaching, so I really hadn't been back in the community directly in a while. So really having that year of multiple roles allowed me to be a better leader, I think, in the long term. So things that we love here, we're a small community. It's kind of all hands on deck. I really pride ourselves in our kids, their actions. Obviously, sportsmanship is a really big thing for us. We have a lot of conversations about that. The kids laugh at me because I'm like, well, let's come up with a new cheer. And they're like, what do you mean? We love our old ones. And so I get a little quirky with our students. We have a student athlete leadership team here. I've actually done it every year since I've been here, and I've almost changed it at least every year. Maybe I did the same for 2 years in a row, but I try to keep it fresh for the kids from a leadership standpoint. And it depends on who I have in that group, but I really pride myself on that group. There's a big drive here to, get fans in the stands for our kids. And so I make that a number one priority of really like creating that environment where people want to be present. And we're a small school, so we don't fill 1,000 people in our football games, but we really try to build our fan sections, our kids student sections. That's a goal for us. Like kids want other kids to watch and play, not just their parents and not just the family. So with that, with the student athlete leadership team, we try to have a lot of theme games and initiatives and raffles. And some years we've done, baskets and giveaways. We've done the best picture, and I made a handmade frame, very big, and had the old snap pictures that what do you call Polaroids. I had like a unique camera, and the kids got to take a picture. The best picture won the prize, but we created a big mural for them in our school. This year, I think we're having a really good job. We're doing a really good job about being very deliberate in our leadership from that group. I think the kids, I made it small. I have 6 kids a part of that group, and I created an auxiliary group called and the athletic ambassadors, and there's 6 kids in that group. We're really trying to now focus in one group to get that fan experience. So we're picking like one big game for every team this fall, and I'm working with my coaches to help finagle practice times to be able to get more kids and teams and fans to the games of especially one big game, and really just have that high school athletic experience where we fill our crowd and the kids get to play in front of other people. So that's been a really big initiative this year. Last year, I got really creative with that group, and we did a senior game initiative, and they got a fan t-shirt if they attended every senior game in the winter season. And then we had like a hockey puck challenge, a half court free throw challenge, and they got a raffle ticket to be selected. I did a baked good giveaway, and I got all my village together and said, can you guys donate some baked goods? And the kids had pizza at one game because there was 2 games on one night, and they had desserts at the other. And we filled the stands in an exciting way. So I really one of the big leadership initiatives I have here is to listen to the kids, get them together in their leadership groups. Obviously, leadership's a big part of who I am, and listen to what they're looking for. One of the initiatives last year that we had talked about in this group was connecting the school to the athletics even more, and bringing back like that enthusiasm, and getting teachers and faculty and non-athletes to understand what athletics looks like and the commitment. So my athletic ambassador groups are now going to be a connection at open houses and when kids come for tours at our school, just to be that present, and be able to articulate what life's like, as a student athlete, and what our goals are and our mission. And they're going to be a part of some of the marketing, and they're doing newsletters for me, and they have a Google Classroom page where all of like results and highlighted plays and media that they capture can be in one place, so we can really get that visible in the school environment as well. So I've gotten creative in that way, but I feel like leadership wise, one of my big drives is to stay connected to the student athlete. It's about them. It's the reason why we're all here, right? I only have stayed in high school athletic administration truly because of the kids, the lessons they learn, the experiences they have, the traditions, the memories they make. That's what means a lot to me. So I make that one of my big initiatives. Other than that, I'd say one of our big drives here in leadership really is to get kind of all hands on deck. So we really work a lot with our parents and boosters, and to support our coaches and take some of the extra stuff off their plate. We don't have a big booster group. Every team has like a booster account, and funds that they fundraise for just the team activities. But it's nice to have parent involvement in that. And sometimes that's a challenge for administrators, right? We want to maintain that. And we really try to articulate like what we look for from them, and not just like, okay, a weekly schedule send out on Sunday night, and not just like make sure the kids have their drinks. It's really like I call it like we're all a piece of our puzzle here. And their role as booster liaisons is really to be a brand for their program, and what they're articulating outside of school, and what they're telling other people about their son or daughter's experience. And so we really dive deep into the intangibles of what a booster liaison, a booster representative means to us. And I think our parents have taken such initiative over the years I've been here with that. I mean, I literally cry when parents graduate from here. Certain ones of them I truly do miss. And I'm like, oh, you didn't know you signed for a lifelong contract. I'll see you next year. And they're like, I don't have any more kids. So it's fun. So we really do, our people matter to, at least from my end in athletics. People matter, and I think in our community that's an important piece too. So from a leadership standpoint as well, I'm always kind of involved with parents. They're sending me pictures and highlights a lot of times if I'm not at the away game, and I think that's really important. You know, being a leader is about relationships, and I think whether at a small school, you know, maybe I'm here a lifetime, or you know, maybe I embark in a big school. That's a piece of who I am, but I think that's a piece of being a successful leader is staying connected, you know, kind of pulsing out. Every component of your department is really important, and the people really do matter.
Yeah, well, you covered two great resources that I think a lot of athletic directors don't always um, see the value in, you know, having that student leadership component. And I know you post a lot of that on social media. And then also having the parents, those key parents, those booster liaisons. You know, you
Mhm.
mentioned you're sad sometimes when that longtime parent graduates. Sometimes you're happy when that other parent is graduating too. But share if you can. We were very fortunate at my school. We had a great student leadership program. Our assistant AD, she actually ran it. She did a wonderful job, um, and they came up with some really cool initiatives that ended up putting kids in the bleachers at our games and helped us with sportsmanship. What are
Mhm.
some things that your student athlete leadership program has brought, maybe one or two that again were student ideas that, well, maybe not you, but for me, it was just like, wow, I never would have thought of that.
Mhm. Our student athlete leadership team and our student athletes and teams in general do a great job with um, fundraising and community efforts. So we've done, you know, emergency, oh my gosh, I can't even think, like veterans, honoring veterans at games, emergency responders at games, and that's been awesome. One of a really big initiative that kind of sprung from athletes going through adverse situations, and I may have shared this with you last time we had talked, is our Payson Center fundraiser basketball initiative. We do with Merrimack Valley, which is a local school, and it really stemmed from kids. Um, Getting hit by adverse situations. A couple of our teachers were struck with cancer, in our local community, lost two athletic initiative family members, coaches to cancer kind of at the same time. And our kids just really love to do and really do think out of the box and how to serve others. And so I think our student athlete leadership team does a great job with fundraising or community game events. We've done, like I said, first responders nights and those kind of things, but really fundraising has been huge. We do some runs here. Susie, one of our teachers, takes a lot of initiative in that. And just like every little bit helps, and that's how our kids think. We do can drives. Our student athlete leadership team leads the Tackles Hunger, which is a state initiative, but they take that, they go shopping at Hannaford with me, and they have so much fun because we get some donations early and financial donations that we're able to kind of start our campaign. And we do a lot of initiatives like that. So I really think one of the great things about our kids is, and I think kids today, if you talk to them, like they like giving back and they like serving others, and they have a lot of great ideas in that aspect. So I mean, we do, like I said, a lot of fun things. I did learn over the last 2 years, you feed them, they will come. It is really wild. So we do a lot of baked good nights, or you know, first 20 people get the free t-shirt. I try to work with local companies, or I do some, you know, secret fundraising where I can keep a good cushion to help out. You know, but I also talk to them about a lot of, um, you know, what holds people back. So, like, one thing I learned over the last 2 years is tournament games can be expensive for kids. And, you know, they get into our games free, but, you know, our state organization has to charge, and there's a fee. So, our SALT team did some fundraising on the side to have a tournament game account so we can pay for kids' tickets to go to their tournament games, you know? So we're always thinking as creatively as not just like how do we get them there, almost the backside of like what holds them back, you know, scheduling. So like this year our goal is to move a few practices and just be very deliberate with certain games that need or we want more support at, and not try to do every game, but try to say, okay, I can't ask my coach to cut an hour out of practice every day, guys, but let's focus in on, okay, let's start small and see how this develops. And so I think they do a really nice job at that. And we have a lot of fun. We've done whatever, put the big shoes on and run. Like we try to get creative and as much as we can. But yeah, it's really great. And our leadership team does some like we've started some youth clinics on the side of leadership activities and those kind of things. So they really are just great at like giving back and coming up with ideas like that.
Yeah, our kids, they came up with this idea to do a game of the week, a high school, JV, middle school, and alternate and just really try to pack the house for that particular sport, that particular level. Great stuff.
I might
Annie,
have to call
oh,
it
go
game
ahead.
of the week. I might have to call my new initiative for like one focus game every couple weeks, game of the week. I like it.
Hey, there you go. In true athletic director fashion, we take those good ideas. And that was not my idea. That was our student athletes' idea. And we're going to do this at the end of the podcast, but if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit more, or even just add you to their network, and listeners, I think you got a great resource here. What's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we all love email, but realistically, we're not always able to sit. So my cell is probably the best way, 603-491-6005. Or I'm on LinkedIn. I've connected with a lot of ADs even over the last 2 years on there, and just kind of pulse check how you doing this fall. A little message can go a long way, just staying connected. So I'm always on there stealing from other ADs who share things that they do too. I think LinkedIn's a great resource right now too. So.
Well, again, we're going to give that out, that information out, and information's also on the NIAAA membership portal for our NIAAA members. Let's go and take another quick break. I know that's shocking to our regular listeners, but we are going to come back with more. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We'd like to say thank you to Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio University, but my assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others, and it was just a great experience. It's a very affordable program, just 20 months, totally online. And while you're completing your master's degree, Ohio University includes 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. To get more information or to sign up, just go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. We want to thank our good friends at Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day. Things like schedules, rosters, scores, communication. How about student athlete eligibility and clearance? Who doesn't do that every day? Well, Home Campus does all of these things and more. It does them better and it does them faster. And all you have to do to get started is go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We'd also like to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all of the events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touchscreen. That's right, touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to share your school's unique history and brag a little bit about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Make sure you mention the podcast, vitalsignswalloffame.com. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. And you are a certified athletic administrator through our national organization. That doesn't happen by accident. Can you share with our listeners your journey with the NIAAA and with your state association? How did that all happen?
Yeah, so obviously, as previously mentioned, I love leadership and I love kind of hands-on and doing what I can to serve others. So when before I took the year off to have my child, I got involved with our New Hampshire Athletic Director Association, and became a divisional rep on their on their executive board, which was awesome. And stepping into that was wonderful as a new AD in the state, having been around NHIA my whole life and kind of understanding how the sports side of things work, seeing how the AD kind of process and decision making and some of the bigger picture things was so beneficial. I was really bummed when I decided to take the year off because I stepped off that board, but I learned so much. When I had stepped off, I was also a part of our NHI basketball committee because I had applied after my first year to get involved with whatever committee. And obviously, having a basketball background, I jumped on board when they asked me to be a part of that committee. So taking the year off, I kind of missed all those opportunities to learn outside of just the role. So when I took this back over, I had told myself I'm going to get involved in as many ways as possible. So one of my big passions is like the awards process, recognizing kids. I spend a lot of time reaching out to as many places, getting little awards or recognitions for not just great play, but great student athlete intangibles, awarding kids for little things. So when I came back, I got back involved with the NHIA basketball committee, which was awesome. And I actually got an opportunity to be on the NHIA awards committee, which was even cooler. And I say that almost like a young child again, because I grew up in NHIA, around NHIA, having a lot of family a part of it and being in New Hampshire for so long. The Hall of Famers that I know that have already been recognized in the state. I grew up seeing them coach or play. Some of them are, part of my family or extended family. And so being a part of the awards committee and just seeing that process of how the Hall of Fame are selected and some of the prestigious awards in our state has been such an awesome opportunity. When I did that, the union leader is one of our local newspapers, and I got an opportunity to be a part of their awards committee as well, which is really cool. So they recognize like athletes of the month. They recognize Hall of Fame. It's a Hall of Fame, but it's a titled coach recognition for years of service and refs recognition. And I just have loved being a part of that. We do monthly voting, and I'm kind of the Concord area rep, which is nice. So I don't really have to know everybody from Berlin to Salem, but I really can get to know and make sure I'm staying in tune to some great play and um, great execution of skills and goals and all those highlighted moments from local area athletes and even coaches and people that are worthy of recognition that may not have gotten those yet. So that's been really fun. We host an event in February for all the yearly winners and then those refs and coaches that get recognized as well. So that was really awesome. And then recently I actually got an opportunity kind of getting back in. I had a second child to mix all this. So getting my feet wet again, I got back into NHADA and I am our divisional secretary, which I was before as well. So I got kind of roped back in doing that, which doesn't take a lot of work. So it's nice. But I also became the co-chair of the awards committee for them. So it's kind of funny because as much as I love recognizing kids, athletes, coaches for all the time effort that often goes unseen, I found myself on 3 awards committees recently, and I'm really enjoying it. When I had started that, I started that earlier this year. I actually got to be a part of structuring our Scholar Athlete Big Award ceremony. I did a little bit of speaking there, but I got to see how that process come together, and I'm really excited for future years of doing that because there's different things throughout the year that the awards committee kind of spearheads as a state, and it was just a really fun opportunity from even like selecting the speaker, who's going to be right for that award ceremony, who's going to send the best message to those senior athletes. So yeah, it was really, really fun. So I am hoping to expand now that I have found my way back into the AD world. I'm hoping to get involved with NIAAA. I am a member. I did finish my my CAA, and I'm working towards my CMAA. And I'm hoping to finally make it to my first conference this December. So I think we're making it a family trip. So.
Well, when we're done with this interview, you definitely need to go tell your principal, "Hey, I need to go to Austin for the national conference."
Yep.
Um, I'm going to ask you about CMAA stuff, but looking back at your CAA experience, can you remember one of the courses, not by name, but as you're sitting there at that table with those other athletic directors, usually, at least in one course, it's one or the other reaction. Oh my goodness, this is great stuff. I got to bring it back to my school. Or oh my goodness, we're not doing this. I really need to bring this back to my school. Did you have either of those experiences?
Yeah, I actually, I guess I have to give a shout out. One of a great role model in the athletic director world for me is Lisa Gingras at Nashua. She is incredible. And so I'll tell you a funny story about my CAA. When I was my first tenure, before I took that year off, I actually did 501. I did all the first three courses. And when I came back, I had told Carol Dawsonberg, who's our executive
Oh
director,
yeah.
there was a special grant that we had gotten for new ADs. And I said, can I take them again? I said, I just really want to refresh and renew. And I'm really happy I did because Lisa actually taught, um, is it 501, where the kind of the basics of
Right.
ADs and all
Mm-hmm.
those standards. And I loved it. And I was able to listen to some of her coaching meeting handbook policies, how she structures her initial coaching meeting, even her parent and student meeting. And I stole a lot of great ideas from her there. And so, like you say, oh, why am I going to take those classes again? And I was like, this is great. Like, yeah, and just having that different, a new vibe, that kind of I call it my second tenure. And it was great. So yeah, I took a lot of great information from just like the basic administrative initial courses. And some of it was truly just like handbook and policies and just reviewing the 14 duties, right? How powerful is that? I feel like if we had more opportunity to go back, like we all know the duties, right? But like just to hear somebody break them down again was so wonderful. So yeah, so I'd say kind of taking those courses again even made me more alert and very diligent with just my handbook reviews and my coaches meetings, like really just emphasizing like sharing your mission is so important with them, and that we're all, the culture we want is going to be similar because it all ties back to our athletic mission. So
Oh no, absolutely. And you mentioned a couple of podcast veterans. Both Lisa and Carol were on the podcast. I got to work with Carol on the 716 course, partnering with parents. Great experience. Um, Talking about CMAA, and again, I was on certification for many years, so I had a chance to give this advice out and still do many times. Um, as you look, and I'm talking to Ann as well as our listeners, as you look at what your CMA project might be, uh, don't try to come up with the greatest thing in the world, because you as an AD, you're already doing something at your school that would make a great CMA project. Maybe it's with students, maybe it's with parents, maybe it's with facilities or your community. The best CMA projects are the ones that are close to your heart, that you're passionate about, and that you know something of. And then the project is simply sharing that, either writing it out old school, which is what I did. And I really enjoyed that, or using the new oral option and creating a PowerPoint presentation and sharing that with a couple of people on the certification committee. So, Ann, I'm going to put you on the spot. What are you thinking, or what have you thought might be your CMA project?
So a friend of mine, Kenny Edwards, he's the athletic director over at Merrimack Valley, and I had previously mentioned we host. Kenny is fairly new, a couple years in. The previous AD and I had started this Payson Center fundraiser, and we've been doing it for, oh gosh, 6 or 7 years now. And it is very near and dear to my heart. I've had some loved ones pass from cancer, but you see cancers everywhere, and so many of our families and kids, or the most unsuspected person has gone through and been struck by it. So you say that, and I say, oh my God, I didn't even know. And I was talking to Kenny one day. He's leading some of our professional development in the state, and he was like, I saw you finished your CAA. What's up for the CMAA? He said, Annie, I have the best project for you. You need to do your project on this event, because he had seen 2 years ago when we're hosting again this year. Kind of my heart and soul go into this event, and the community that I built around this event had really just all hands on deck. Everyone was so into it. He said, that's what you're going to do. And he hosted it last year. And he said, Annie, this is awesome. That's what you're going to do for your project. And I went home and I was like, huh. Because I really was stumbled on which direction to go with it. I'd finished all the courses that I wanted to take. So really just now start thinking about it. And I can't get my head out of it. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm actually really excited because this is our year to host. We host every alternate year. And so I've really come up with a structured plan, a meeting schedule with like my village here that helps me put this together. And I was talking to you when you had shared about the oral presentation option. And so I'm actually really excited because I'm going to do that option for this. But you know what? I think it leaves a legacy for an event. It puts it kind of in a simplified but detailed way through a PowerPoint option. And I can kind of still piece together words and structure to it. So it won't go away. So I'm really excited about the whole opportunity to do this. It's an important piece to our community. Our Payson Center in town at our hospital is a growing and just such a big developing community outlet for families and patients that are going through such an adverse time. So.
Well, we're going to talk more about those details, after we finish this. But again, for listeners, Annie just gave a great example of something that is very near and dear to her heart that she knows intimately. And I can tell you that would be a great CMA project. So, if you're in another state, every single state has a state certification coordinator. Reach out to that individual. Reach out to me if you'd like. But if you're looking for a CMA project, I guarantee you're already doing something that would make a great one. And this is always great to connect with you and spend some time, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you certainly know your way around the world of athletics, but when we come back from our last break, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. So let's hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsored this segment. When we return, we're going to see what Ann Mattarazzo is going to put in her new athletic director toolbox. We'd like to thank Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. Athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group that only wants to complain. Athletic Surveys will connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders that support your program. And having that data is incredibly valuable, especially when you're meeting with a frustrated parent or student athlete, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've spent some time with our good friend, Ann Mattarazzo. She's a certified athletic administrator and the director of athletics at Bishop Brady High School in Concord, New Hampshire. Has an incredible background in athletics, but right now I'm going to challenge her to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let her put 3 things in the toolbox. So, Ann, what 3 items are going into your new athletic director toolbox?
Oh man, these are things that I've probably learned along the way, and you think you already know them, but I think I value them more now than ever. I would say have your speed dial go-to mentor at hand all the time. So, obviously, I have to have my husband number one, but my number two is my resource that gives me the answers or just helps me stay sane. So you got to have that person. It doesn't even have to be another AD. Mine is a coach, and she's turned into one of my best friends. She actually works for me now, and she was my art teacher back a long time ago. And without her keeping me sane or giving me a resource, and she's been 30 plus years coaching. So a lot of times I'm like, okay, if this was happening, what would you do? And so having that speed dial, your kind of go-to number that you got to call, have it ready, have it available. I would also say like balance, have your calendar, keep things organized, but balance because you got to take care of yourself. So I work out every day. I love it. And I'm very big in like, if I'm down and out, especially as a mom now, if I'm down and out, I can't help others. So I keep my water bottle with me all the time. So, and then last I would say is make it your own. So, and I really look around just like sitting here. Some days I just look around and see, oh my gosh, like this is my space. And I'm comfortable here and I'm ready to work here. I mean, I even have Part of my office has some of my kids' toys because they're part of my journey too, and they come to work sometimes, on game days. And I just make it your own. That's really important, and it starts with from your desk to your office, to your even. I pride myself on keeping things organized. My closets, my inventory space. Make it the way you feel comfortable and you know where things are, and that you value it. And so I think that's important from where you sit to where your stuff is. It's super important. So
Well, I love them all, and I love the way you phrase that, make it your own, and that involved that whole organization process. But it's a place to keep your stuff. Great, great stuff. Um, one more time, if one of our listeners wants to connect, pick your brain a little bit, or just add you, maybe you're going to become their go-to. What's the best way to get a hold of Ann Mattarazzo?
yeah, absolutely. Email is fine, but we know that's tough. So AMATTARAZZO at bishopbrady.edu, or cell 603-491-6005. I always have that, don't we all, right? So reach out anytime, and I love to talk shop, and I'm very big, and like I said, being a student of the game, so I'll steal ideas too. So
Well, thanks again for sharing with our listeners. All the best for the rest of the fall and the school year. And I'm serious. I definitely want to see you down in Austin, Texas in December.
love it.
Okay. For our listeners, we appreciate you. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day, sharing stories and best practices. So hopefully you'll come back for another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.